let's go to Newcastle 2, Chelsea 0. Sandro Tonali getting a goal, a very early goal in the second minute. And then Guimaraes bookending the game with a 90th minute winner after Jackson was sent off in the 35th minute. Andrea, we thought Chelsea had turned a corner with that Liverpool performance, and then this happens.
Yeah, I think the performance even before the red card was quite poor. I think it was quite lethargic, I felt, overall. I felt like Palmer was coming too deep, getting the ball, and there was a lot of long balls into the box, and it was just quite slow out wide. So even before the red card, I just couldn't see Chelsea scoring. So it was frustrating to watch. And then the red card, of course, we'll come to, just changed the game completely. Obviously, it kind of, any chance that Chelsea had, it was completely gone at that moment, I think. And the kind of football kind of stayed the same, and it was very lackluster in the end, and a very disappointing performance considering a win of that game would have pretty much guaranteed a top 5 finish. So, very disappointing, I think. And again, I just think that the stylistic play for me was the big worry of all. I think, it was just very lackluster, and it's just the motivation. I don't see how that, with such a big game, that the output was that. I think that's what's concerning.
And Adam, this has been the issue for Maresca, right? It's just been the inconsistency and the not really knowing who's going to start, how they're going to turn up, how they're going to and Lavia going from a man of the match performance to then this game. You just never know who's going to turn up for Chelsea, right?
Yeah, I think the key word here is maturity when we kind of allude to Nicholas Jackson, but I think you could use that across the whole team because I think maturity is the issue here. I seem to recall, if not mistaken, about 12 months ago, we talked about the lack of experience in this squad, the lack of your Thiago Silva's being able to marshal the team itself and pull them through these kind of periods where they are struggling for confidence or form, for example. I don't think they have enough generals within that kind of team when you think about the money that they've spent. And I think that was what was evident in this game, is that you haven't got those kind of players that can grab it by the ruff of the neck and kind of drag the whole team across. You need that across the team, whether that be up front, midfield or defence. And I think one of the things that Chelsea fans are frustrated is you used to have a core of those kind of generals within Chelsea's squads of previous ilk. You don't see that with this kind of regurgitation of this regen team. And whilst I think in the long run, it might eventually get to that point, I think there's a lot of question marks still being aimed at certain players, whether their futures are going to still be there. And the problem I find is that a lot of pressure seems to be on the man who's managing the situation in terms of whether it's Pochettino, Maresca. I don't think Maresca is necessarily a huge upgrade on Pochettino, but ultimately it feels like that they will give him time again for next season. But on the performances, I think Chelsea fans are just frustrated at this moment in time that they haven't got a consistency out of this squad. There's been signs of maturity, but it hasn't been consistent enough. And I feel the tactics that Maresca deploys is also the question mark here as well, because I don't think he's necessarily an elevation up from Pochettino, but I don't have an answer to it because unfortunately it's the ownership that has to take responsibility for that as well.
So then, Andrea, is this the job of the ownership this summer to get a bit of experience into that changing room? Because all the players I'm seeing Chelsea linked with, it's like Benjamin Sesko, it's all prospects. Again, they very much got this model in their head, right? Of buy young, hopefully sell high, I don't know. But do you think they will learn the lesson that they need someone who's been there, done that, a couple of leaders in this team that can get them across? Because I don't see the ownership really getting those types of players.
Yeah, my worry is that I don't see them doing it just purely because they're still currently doing it right now with a few more signings that they've done recently as well in terms of young players coming in. It seems that obviously the financial situation is the other question. How much can they spend? How much do they need to sell to kind of presumably it might be a stage where we have to see a lot of sales before any transfers coming in. The only thing I can see is a striker coming in, which is very valuable at this point because it's what Chelsea's missed since Diego Costa, to be honest, from what I've been watching. So that's important. But again, the other key area for me is like the goalkeeper, but we've got 7 of them. You know, you can't just buy another one. You know, so again, it's just the realisticness of it is the other question. But I think the squad's been such a mess of a, you know, all these transfers is all being individual based rather team based, that it makes you envious of like teams like Arsenal and Liverpool who have a clear structure, a clear core, clear leaders. You know, and I think that's what is. Like Adam was saying, you can't connect with it. You know, you can connect back to the day when we had John Terry, when you had Peter Cech, you had that core, you know, and even like in recent times with Diego Costa, Fabregas, that era was really, you had leaders in each position. But in this one, it's just like you're asking a lot of Enzo to do it, and Enzo's still a young player as well and inexperienced. And again, you're asking a lot of these certain players to step up in a league where it's, you know, it doesn't wait for you. You've got to hit it on the ground running. So again, I think it's difficult for the current players, but at the same time, they're not being helped by the transfer system because again, we're just seeing more young players signing, more kind of this philosophy, but it needs to halt at some point because otherwise it's just going to keep being a repetitive pattern. And yes, financially, it might make Chelsea a lot stronger and maybe perhaps selling more, but is it really doing it on the pitch? It's almost neglecting the pitch side, and that's where you question this project. Is it more business rather than actually winning trophies? And that's the horrible thing because Chelsea's. I grew up watching Chelsea winning so many titles, and now it's just like I can't see the next one coming in a while now. So it's a sad situation. But again, it's all come from the leadership, and then it's also talk now of Bowley potentially stepping down. So it's all this mess that's created. I feel like he's realised it, and it's like, well, it's sinking. I've probably just go. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happens as well. So it's people that don't know the footballing side enough to make big decisions, thinking it's Football Manager, thinking it's FIFA, where if we spend $1 billion, we should win something. And it doesn't work like that. It really doesn't.
Yeah, it does look like a complete mess. And even like the one that highlights it for me is this Chalobah situation. It's nothing against Chalobah, but he's out on loan at Palace because they don't want him. Then they bring him back to sell him, but then they can't sell him. So now he's starting every single game. And you're like, the players themselves must just be like, with a suitcase by the door, just waiting, like just always ready because they just don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, complete mess for